Spirituality.
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 Spirituality, mate.
Spirituality.
Spirituality. Spirituality. Spirituality. No matter how you say it, it's kind of an ugly word, right? It kind of has a flavor to it that isn't particularly tasty. Why is that? Well, first of all, it's got too many syllables. Have you ever heard a 6-syllable word that rolled off the tongue? Here's some 6-syllable words. Imperialism, ugly word. Intuitivity, just say intuitive. Enamelioplasty, which means the same thing as dental recontouring. Also 6 syllables, also ugly. So before I get started on today's housekeeping, first I want to make a comment about my hats. I cut myself shaving. My girlfriend said it looks like a crazy woman clawed my skull, hence the hats I'll be wearing for this video. That's the first order of business. The second order of business is that I've been thinking seriously a lot about why I'm doing this channel, who might wander into these videos and find them helpful. I've decided I'm going to put some energy into these videos, and I'm going to try and unpack what the spiritual path means for people who are just living secular lives, okay? I'm going to try and do this over the course of maybe several videos. So this is, I need a project. I've come to feel that I sit down to do these videos every week and I feel a little bit scattered. I need a project, I need a goal. I'm living in Europe right now. I live in Vienna in Austria. Vienna, Austria is like one country away from sharing a border with the Ukraine. There's a full-scale war going on now in the Ukraine. I look around me, I see chaos, I see suffering, I see pain, I see beautiful, interesting, smart people, cities, nations, running around like chickens with their heads cut off. So based on the simplicity of the teachings that I got in the 13 years I was a full-time Zen Buddhist monk, I want to see if we can't come up with some universal way of looking at the spiritual quest. Spirituality. There's that hideous word again. Why is it ugly? Well, it's not just because it has 6 syllables. It's ugly because it's an imprecise word. It doesn't refer to anything in particular. There is no correlate in reality that you can point to and say, that's spiritual. Including the face of Deepak Chopra. So there's also the sense with the word spirituality that it's just trying to sneak religion in through the back door, right? Like religion knocked on your door and you opened it and then you shut it instantly, and then you heard another knock and you opened it and religion was sitting there, but it was wearing a blonde, California blonde wig and a hemp muumuu dress, pretending like it's now spirituality, but you know it's just religion, right? And let's face it, the only word uglier than spirituality is religion. So why is religion a bad word? Well, in this day and age, it refers to institutions that seem to do oftentimes the complete and total opposite of what they're supposed to do. What is religion supposed to do? Well, off the top of my head, I would say it's supposed to help link us up with or connect us to something much larger than ourselves, helps us love one another better and deeper, and it helps us basically live good lives. But instead of helping us find something larger than ourselves, doesn't it oftentimes seem like religion takes that which is larger than ourselves and crushes it down into this infinitely small, infinitely petty package? Instead of helping us love one another better, doesn't it seem like religions oftentimes teach us to just basically kind of dislike, disrespect, if not hate, people who don't believe the same things that we believe? And instead of helping us live genuinely good lives, it oftentimes seems to me like religions just erect these cages around our behavior. And electrocute us with spiritual dog collars every time we try and wander outside of their petty limitations. Plus, pedophilia. Let's not forget that there's a lot of pedophilia in our religious institutions. Is atheism the answer? In many ways, yeah. Atheism has become kind of a cottage industry. I mean, I just saw a tweet from Neil deGrasse Tyson that said something to the effect of, in Moscow, there's an Orthodox Christian church right next to some important political structure, and his point was, if these people can believe in the crazy, stupid, unscientific things that go into baking the cake of their Orthodox Christianity, which they shovel down their pie holes, certainly they can believe the stupid, satanic, evil things that Putin tells them when he wants to attack Ukraine, right? This is kind of a new atheist position. Smug, rational, kind of like true sounding, but not quite complete. So speaking of the new atheists, early in the 21st century, coinciding with the terrorist attack on the Twin Towers on 9/11, there's this new movement that I'm sure most of you know about that exploded in America and in the West. Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, Daniel Dennett, and Sam Harris. Sam Harris, I felt like, was the best of the new atheists. And he wrote The End of Faith, which was an absolutely excoriating takedown of organized religion. Like, take the most severe and intense takedown monologue about religion by George Carlin, extend it to book length, add a ton of footnotes, and you have The End of Faith. Like I said, I read it at the monastery and it blew my mind, but it did not move my heart. And I kind of watched this movement unfold while I was at the Zen Buddhist monastery. I watched God Is Not Great, How Religion Poisons Everything, become a total bestseller. I watched Dawkins' book, I think it was, I forget what it was called, The God Delusion. I watched that one become a bestseller. And I watched all the YouTube videos that we've all seen. Christopher Hitchens hitch slaps another pastor and destroys the religious argument. And I just waited and waited for a thinker to come along who could kind of begin to replace these guys, waited for that movement to expend its energy. Because while I loved it, and I agreed with everything they were saying, pretty much everything they were saying, their arguments didn't, as I said, like, move my heart. Like, when I didn't leave the monastery, which looked an awful lot like organized religion, even though we don't call Zen religion, and I didn't, in my deepest, darkest moments, stop opening my heart and letting a little prayer butterfly flutter out and try and find its place in the universe. I stayed essentially a spiritual person. Hey, wait a minute. Hold on. Let's back up a little bit. Allow me a personal note. So, I was born and raised in a conservative, Catholic, Midwestern household. There was a bloody crucified Jesus and a dignified, chastely dressed Virgin Mary in every room. So in my adolescence, my teens, I held on to my Catholic faith, but it was more like a language I used to practice and express my spirituality than a system that I actually believed in. It was the tool I had, so I tried to use it. Then I went to college and I discovered Nietzsche. And anybody who's read Nietzsche and gotten a real taste for him and gotten him into their intellectual bloodstream knows what I'm talking about. I could never look at my Catholic faith the same way again. It was time to put away the things of my youth. Ta-ta, Catholicism. So at this point, with no religion, I decided to major in philosophy because I thought, hey, if I study philosophy, that's a really good way to learn maybe an objective truth or two about the human condition, right? Boy, was I wrong! Philosophy is a great way to learn a lot of really big 6 to 16 syllable words spoken by onanistic intellectuals who are desperate to hit their publication quota so that they can crawl onto the tenure track like a snail crawling into its perfect shell. Nonetheless, I persisted. I studied the pre-Socratics. My favorite was Heraclitus, the guy who said everything is fire. I think that was him. And he said you can never step in the same river twice. On through the postmodernists. Jean-Francois Lyotard, who wrote of the differend. I did my senior thesis on Lyotard. I presented my oral argument to all the philosophy professors and my class in a leotard, as in a ballerina leotard. Yeah, that's how lost I was, folks. To quote the great Steve Martin, I took just enough philosophy in college to fuck me up for life. So what's a young nihilist to do? I went to Hollywood to become an auteur, to become a film artist, to become a writer and a director. I was done with the search. Religion had failed me, philosophy had failed me. I was done with the search, but the search was not done with me. I quit the search, but the search doesn't quit you. What is the search? Here we go. The search is what, in my experience, most religions and religious people get wrong, and the search is what is incompletely and clumsily referred to by that awful 6-syllable word, spirituality. I think this search is fundamental to the human condition, and you can trust me because I'm wearing a funny hat. One of the most beautiful and interesting things about being human is our capacity to love, to learn, to grow, to evolve, and to transcend suffering. If you put these 5 things together, you've got a sum which is greater than its parts. The search. What are we doing here? In this universe, on this planet, in this city or town or village, apartment, home, walking down the street, office building, in this life. How should a person be? How should you be? How should you live? What is a good life? Does the good life mean marrying, focusing on your children, being a good citizen? Does it mean putting off marriage, putting off having a family so that you can focus on your career and devote yourself to your calling? Should you abandon your religion of upbringing and search for something new? Should you double down on the religion of your upbringing? Should you let go of religion and spiritual practice entirely? Should you vote Democrat? Should you vote Republican? Why? Pro-life, pro-choice, pro-death penalty, anti-death penalty. Why? Should you go to war to protect a country that is being hostilely taken over by another country? Or should you never go to war ever and be a pacifist? These are the big questions. These are the questions that come up in the search. These are the questions that are not answered by, in my experience, the new atheists, science, religion, or woo-woo spirituality. Yet they're questions that are essential to our human life. And a lot of these different questions come together and interact with one another inside of us. And the impulse, instinct, intuition that they give rise to, that we feel and we all know and is variously referred to by the spiritual quest or deep, meaningful philosophical questions or the search, as I put it earlier, all these things are I would say, in many ways, like crucial to get right, or crucial to at least meaningfully address. Questions of purpose, questions that run deeper than who'd you vote for, what exercise regime are you doing, what books are you reading, what degrees do you have, how much money do you make, etc. Another way of looking at this is, how do you take responsibility for yourself? How are you supposed to be, given all the options that you have? And hopefully you have a lot of options, but even if you don't have a lot of options, you are living a very unfree life. You still, as the existentialists taught us, have the option of choosing how you respond to the circumstances that you're stuck in. So the question then is, at the heart of this search, how do you take responsibility for yourself, for this life that you've been given, for this brief 80, if you're lucky, years that you have on this planet? How do you find a path? The path. That brings us to next week's topic. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, the first in what I hope will be a series of videos exploring this topic that we started today. We're going to get to some Zen stuff. I'm just trying to lead us through the steps that make, at least for me, that made Zen necessary and the logical beginning and end place, if you will, of my search. Think of the Enso circle. Thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon and for all those of you who have sent me donations on PayPal. I'm living in a foreign country and I don't speak the language here. Ironically, they speak German here, which was the one class I failed my freshman year in high school. So I'm hustling, and I really appreciate the help that you show me on Patreon and PayPal. And if you want to keep seeing these videos and you want to support what I'm doing, you can go to Patreon. The link is in my information on this video. It's right here below as well. Go to patreon.com and get on my show there. There's lots of essays, there's blogs, there's videos, there's lots of good stuff going on there. We started doing sits too, online sits. I apologize, P.S., for the snafu this past weekend when we did our live sit. I couldn't figure out how to make Zoom work, so I apologize for that. Also, just as a side note, we did a Q&A at the end of that video. At the end of that Zoom call. I don't like Q's and A's. I have Q's too. I don't have any A's. I'm a Q guy. So next time maybe we'll do Q's and Q's. Stay tuned in any event for part 2 next week of The Search. Part 2 being The Path.